Hello, welcome to Earth Science. I'm Miss H. I'm here at a place called Monument Rocks. We're just outside of a city called Oakley, Kansas, in the middle of Gove County. The pillar behind me may not seem like much from here, but when you expand your view to the whole area, you start to realize it's something pretty special. These stone islands all around me rise out of the prairie, a lone cluster of rocks, approximately 70 feet tall, that's above the ground, in an otherwise vast, flat landscape. For a bit of perspective, here's a picture I took as we approached the rock formation. Also, keep in mind, these pillars go very deep below the surface as well. Also known as the chalk pyramids, these columns were formed in the late Cretaceous period, when the carbonate sediments were deposited here. How did they get here? You'll soon see. The pillars and surrounding areas are filled with fossils, more specifically, marine or oceanic fossils. So why are they here in the middle of nowhere on the Kansas prairie? It's dry as a bone, and there's no sea in sight. We're about as far as you can get from an ocean. Well, this is where it gets interesting. These rock formations date back millions of years, all the way back to the mid to late Cretaceous and into the Paleocene. Note that we're all the way down at the end here. Let's take a quick 360-degree view of this set of monument rocks while I go through a little bit more of the history. This time period was warm. Our continent was much closer to the equator than we are now. Sea levels were incredibly high at that time. Fun fact, we actually had dinosaurs in our area. Several have been unearthed down in the Ozark, Missouri area. Many more have been unearthed here in Kansas. Now let's get back to our marine fossils. None of this tells us how those fossils got here, to the middle of the continent. But I did give you a hint. Can you guess what it was? This whole area was once covered by a sea. Yes, we were completely underwater. A shallow sea covered the entire midsection of North America. Here's a map of what it looked like. This was called the Western Interior Seaway. It was also known as the Niobrarian Sea. It was under this sea that carbonate sediment was deposited, forming these pillars you see here. Marine organisms that were living in the sea died and turned into fossils. Eventually, the sea levels fell and the seaway dried up, and here we are. Niobrarian chalk pillars containing marine fossils. Here are some images that I took inside the Sternberg Museum of Natural History, only a few hours away in Hays, Kansas. I'm including these here because unfortunately I was not able to spend more than a few minutes out at the monument rocks themselves because it was so incredibly cold while we were here. The temperature out here today, just as an FYI, is an actual temperature of negative 12 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind chills are closer to negative 30. So we're not going to do a whole lot with camera tricks and camera angles. We just want to get you the video without freezing to death. A few interesting facts about the seaway. It was a really shallow sea. Estimates from geologists are that it was about 800 to 900 meters at its deepest point. That equates to about 2,000 to 3,000 feet deep for us Americans. Compare that to the Pacific Ocean that can get up to 10 to 11,000 meters deep, which in American numbers, that's around 35,000 feet deep. The Western Interior Seaway expanded and receded several times throughout its existence. At its widest point, it went all the way from the Rocky Mountain area on the west to the Appalachian Mountains in the east. That's about 620 miles. It stretched from the Arctic Ocean all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. That's about 2,000 miles. Here's that image one more time with the two halves labeled for you. This is after the waters had receded some. Monument Rocks is actually two separate islands of pillars, so here we are headed to part 2 of Monument Rocks, where the road drives right through the middle. Fun fact, the Western Interior Seaway was not actually the first time that the Midwest was underwater. If you go all the way back to the Silurian time, we were underwater then as well. If you're interested in learning about this, check out the Jacob's Cave video, where I talk about the evidence for the Silurian Sea. I'll put a link to that up in the cards when I upload this video. From Monument Rocks, we continued on to a place known as Castle Rock, created in the exact same way during the exact same time as Monument Rocks, and we'll see a lot of the Kansas Badlands while we're there. So please check that video out as well once you're finished watching this one. Your final view here is us traveling out of Monument Rocks, so you can see these fabulous chalk pyramids in all their glory, with nothing but flat land around them. We'll pan back to that original set where the archway keyhole pillars were at. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I will see you next time.